Welcome to the deep dive. If you're here, you're probably looking for that comprehensive, actionable knowledge on topics that are, well, moving incredibly fast, faster than you can schedule a meeting sometimes.
That's right.
Today, we're diving deep into something that's really shaken up enterprise risk, cybersecurity, specifically how it's now almost entirely driven and really defined by artificial intelligence.
Yeah, we spent some time synthesizing a lot of material strategic briefings, roundtables with CISOs, directors, plus some hard market data, trying to cut through the noise.
And what's the core message coming through?
The central truth really is that AI is this ultimate dual-edged sword. It's simultaneously the main risk accelerant for attackers.
Okay.
And it's also the necessary mitigation lever for defenders.
Right. That's the paradox, the thing we really need to unpack today, because this isn't just about like new software products. It feels like a complete strategic breakpoint.
It absolutely is. The old ways, the compliance checklists, the control models, they're pretty much obsolete now.
Why? Because both sides.
Because both attackers and defenders are using the exact same class of powerful, autonomous AI tools.
Right.
And they're using them at the same time, concurrently.
So the old metrics don't really apply anymore. It's not about how many firewalls you have.
No, not at all. The new measure of security, the real benchmark for an organization, is its internal AI integration maturity.
AI integration maturity. Can you explain that a bit?
It's about how ready you are institutionally to govern AI, to actually use AI effectively and crucially to defend against AI threats, all at machine speed.
Got it. So that's our mission for this deep dive then. Provide a kind of strategic blueprint for defending yourself in this new high-speed reality.
Exactly, a blueprint for resilient defense.
Okay, let's jump straight into that speed aspect you mentioned. When we talk about AI accelerating the threat landscape, what does that actually feel like on the ground operationally? What's the most maybe shocking metric you found that really shows this collapse of time?
I think the metric that should, frankly, chill every C-suite executive is the attack velocity itself. We're seeing breaches that once took days, maybe even weeks, of manual work reconnaissance, payload prep.
Right, the old school hacking.
Yeah. That process now happens in under an hour.
Under an hour?
Under an hour, thanks to automated AI doing the reconnaissance and generating the exploits.
Wow. So if your plan relies on a human analyst spotting the first sign of trouble, digging through logs, and then manually kicking off containment.
You've already lost. It's too late.
Yeah.
By that point, you're not reacting to an attack in progress. You're basically just cleaning up after a successful breach.
The window for human speed reaction is gone.
Functionally gone, yes.
Yeah.
And it's not just the technical side AI has sped up. It's also sort of commoditized really sophisticated attacks.
Like phishing?
Exactly. The data we looked at shows up to 80% of phishing attacks are now either AI generated or heavily AI augmented.
80%.
And they're good. They achieve basically human equivalence in how personalized they are, the scale. They're much more convincing than the old bulk spam emails ever were.
Okay, so AI moves from being this like theoretical future risk to a daily crushing operational reality. How common is this expected to get? Are we talking daily attacks?
Oh, absolutely. The consensus is overwhelming. 93% of security leaders expect their organizations will be facing daily AI-powered cyber attacks within the next 6 months.
So it's not if, it's when and how often. It's just part of the cost of doing business now.
It's guaranteed.
Yeah.
Part of the operating environment.
And that volume, that speed, it obviously costs money. The sources mentioned an average financial hit from just one AI-related breach hitting around $4.8 million.
Yeah, it's the average.
What makes up that number? Is that just like paying a ransom?
No, it's much broader than just ransoms, although that can be part of it. That $4.8 million figure really covers 3 big areas.
Yeah.
First, regulatory fines, especially if automated breaches hit sensitive customer data, privacy rules kick in. Second is the cost of containment and recovery itself, which gets way more expensive because the breach happens so fast and spread so wide.
Right, more damage to fix.
And third, maybe the most critical long-term, is the cost of lost customer trust and the reputational damage. When an autonomous system moves that quickly, the damage is just deeper, it's more widespread. It needs costly, long-term fixing.
That financial risk leads us nicely into maybe the most fascinating but also slightly terrifying new threat. Agentic AI, these systems that can, reason, plan, and actually do things without constant human checking.
That's right. Autonomous agents executing complex tasks.
So how should companies think about this new type of employee from a risk standpoint?
We really need to start thinking of these agentic AI systems as the new digital insider.
A digital insider. Okay.
Yeah, they operate inside your systems. They often have high levels of privilege, delegated authority, and just like human insiders, they can cause harm unintentionally, maybe through poor alignment, unforeseen interactions, or potentially deliberate harm if they get compromised by an attacker.
Huh. So it's like giving a super motivated, tireless intern the master key to the server room
Yeah.
and just trusting they'll always follow the rules, even though they can't really ask if they're unsure about something.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And look, this isn't just theoretical stuff. 80% of organizations we saw surveyed have already run into risky or non-compliant behaviors from their AI agents.
80% already. Like what?
Things like improper data exposure, unauthorized data transfers between systems, stuff you really don't want happening automatically.
And because these agents are built to be autonomous, to talk to each other, execute workflows, a problem in one doesn't just stay there, does it? It can spread.
Exactly. The amplification effect is very real.
So what are some of these like new specific risks that our old security models just weren't built for?
Well, one big one is chain vulnerabilities.
Chain vulnerabilities.
Yeah, imagine you have an AI agent managing your credit portfolio. It makes a mistake, misclassifies some financial metric. Then it automatically passes that faulty output to another downstream agent, maybe one that approves loans.
Uh-oh.
Right. And that second agent, using the bad data, automatically approves a massive, very risky loan. The initial flaw in the first agent cascades, it compounds through the whole automated workflow.
So a logic flaw basically turns into an active financial exploit, not just, a bit of broken code sitting there.
Precisely. Another major risk is synthetic identity risk.
Okay.
Agents don't use passwords like we do. They use API keys, security tokens, delegated permissions. An adversary could potentially forge or impersonate an agent's digital identity.
Ah, so they pretend to be a trusted agent.
Exactly. They bypass trust protocols and effectively become a fake digital insider, possibly with really high privileges.
And what about data just vanishing? Data loss?
That brings us to the third big one, untraceable data leakage. Because these agents are designed to swap data really fast across different systems, often without continuous human-level logging or oversight.
It's hard to track.
It can obscure the data flows, so if a leak does happen, trying to trace back the exact sequence of agent-to-agent interactions that led to the data getting out can become almost impossible to audit after the fact.
That sounds like a nightmare for forensics. So given all that, what's the immediate playbook? How do you mitigate this digital insider problem?
The sources are unanimous on this. Governance has to come before you deploy these things widely, not after.
Okay, governance first. What's step one?
Step one, absolutely critical, is updating your identity and access management, your IAM framework specifically for agents. You cannot treat agent credentials like human passwords.
Different rules needed.
Totally different. You need a system that governs those API keys, that defines very narrow, specific scopes of authority for each agent. And you must have rigorous contingency plans, like forced shutdown mechanisms for every critical agent if things go wrong.
Kill switch?
Basically, yeah. This is absolutely foundational to your overall AI integration maturity. You have to get this right.
Okay, let's pivot now, because we've talked a lot about the risk, the scary stuff.
Right.
But AI is also supposed to be this incredibly powerful defensive tool, right? The other side of that dual-edged sword.
Absolutely.
But if the attackers are also using AI, does it just end up being an AI on AI arms race, like a stalemate?
It definitely raises the strategic floor for everyone, no doubt. It is an arms race in that sense.
Oh, yeah.
But AI on the defense side brings capabilities that human analysts, frankly, just cannot match.
Like what specifically?
It really comes down to speed and scale.
Yeah.
AI allows for real-time anomaly detection. It can spot incredibly subtle patterns that are invisible to human eyes, buried in just terabytes and terabytes of log data. And that automation drastically cuts down the mean time to respond to the MTTR because it can execute containment steps almost instantly.
So the human analyst isn't replaced, their job just shifts. The AI handles the sheer speed and volume.
Right.
And the humans focus more on the high-level strategy, the complex decision-making, validating what the AI flags.
That synergy is vital. That's the model that works. And the economics back it up too. Organizations that are proactively using security AI report average annual savings of about $1.76 million compared to those who aren't.
Wow, $1.76 million.
Uh-huh.
That's significant savings.
It's huge. That's not just, operational efficiency. That's real capital freed up. That could fund a team of, 6 or 7 senior threat hunters. It actually turns security into a potential budget multiplier, not just a cost center.
That's a powerful incentive, but there's always a but, isn't there? Here's what felt like the really crucial lesson from the sources. All that fancy AI defense is basically useless without a strong foundation. You can buy the most sophisticated AI security platform out there, but what's the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite for it to actually work?
The absolute foundational requirement is just ruthless, comprehensive, basic security hygiene.
The boring stuff.
The boring stuff. The core lesson is that these AI tools are just, like the sources said, a sophisticated layer atop unstable ground if you don't have the basics nailed.
And the basics are?
Accurate, validated asset inventories. You have to know what you're protecting. Robust identity and access management for humans and for your AI agents. And zero trust principles fully implemented, not just talked about.
Okay, why does the AI fail so badly without those basics? Why does it just amplify noise?
Because AI runs on data. If your asset inventory is wrong or incomplete, the AI is monitoring the wrong things or missing critical systems entirely.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. If your IAM is weak, the AI can't reliably tell a compromised user or agent from a legitimate one. It gets flooded with false positives. It ends up amplifying all the noise instead of isolating the real threats.
So you spend all this money on AI.
And you end up with a costly, complicated, and ultimately false sense of security. Because you haven't achieved that foundational AI integration maturity, it all comes back to that.
Okay, so if threats move at machine speed and our defenses depend on this really disciplined governance and foundational hygiene, that sounds like the job of the CISO and maybe the whole C-suite has fundamentally changed. It's not just about tech anymore.
Not at all. The CISO role has dramatically evolved. They've moved from being, the person managing the firewalls and the tech stack to being a strategic business partner. Their primary job now is really about providing context and managing risk. It involves identifying which technology risks the business needs to take to compete versus which risks absolutely must be shut down immediately.
That requires communicating these complex risks in a way that the board can actually understand and act on. The sources called this a storytelling problem.
It absolutely is a storytelling problem. CISOs had to get away from using, arcane terms, like talking endlessly about MTTR reduction percentages or CVE counts.
The technical jargon.
Yeah. Instead, they need to use storytelling with data. Focus on the business impact, the risk appetite, the potential financial consequences, connect the dots for the board.
So instead of saying, hey, we cut our mean time to respond by 20% last quarter, what's the better story?
The better story is that 20% MTTR reduction directly saved us an estimated $500,000 this quarter. It did that by containing a specific SQL injection attempt before it compromised the critical customer database we rely on for our Q4 revenue projections. That specific security action directly protected shareholder value. See the difference?
Yeah, it connects it right to the bottom line. Much more impactful. And this strategic view, this responsibility, it can't just live with the security team, right? It has to be broader.
No, it has to be an institutional effort. That's where this idea of air-to-ground coverage comes in.
Air-to-ground.
Yeah, think of it as creating a pervasive risk-aware ecosystem. The air is the strategic oversight, the board, the executive setting the risk appetite, the governance standards.
Okay, the high-level view.
Right. And the ground is the disciplined, daily execution of security practices by every single frontline employee. Security awareness, security responsibility, it has to be infused everywhere, from the boardroom all the way down.
So everyone understands their part in maintaining that overall AI integration maturity.
Precisely.
And this shift is actually leading to changes in how boards are structured, too. They're moving beyond just compliance.
Yeah, they have to. They're moving from a purely defensive, compliance-focused posture to one of strategic offense.
Strategic offense.
Meaning they're embracing calculated technology risks because they know they have to in order to stay competitive. And we're seeing boards tool up to handle this. For example, something like 16% of Fortune 500 companies have now established dedicated board technology committees.
Why? To get deeper expertise.
Exactly. To ensure they have deep technical competence right there at the highest level. It allows them to effectively challenge the assumptions coming from management, understand the risks deeply, and really guide that transition from just loss avoidance to seeking strategic advantage through technology, including AI.
All right, let's shift focus slightly to external risk. Modern business is it's so interconnected, we have to talk about the supply chain, which, as the sources rightly point out, isn't really a linear chain anymore, is it?
No, not at all. It's much more like a three-dimensional spider web, just this complex tangle of third-party, fourth-party, nth-party dependencies.
And that spider web, according to the data, is a huge source of risk.
It's arguably the #1 source of large-scale systemic risk today. Nearly 1/3 of all cyber breaches in the last couple of years originated somewhere in the supply chain.
1/3, wow. And the old way of managing this, third-party risk management or TPRM, it's not cutting it.
It's failing, largely because traditional TPRM often stops at your direct suppliers, that first tier, and it heavily relies on those self-reported questionnaires, which often aren't validated.
Right, the check-the-box exercise.
Exactly. It doesn't account for the dependencies your suppliers have and so on down the line.
Yeah.
That nth-party risk.
So if that broad questionnaire approach is broken, what's the better strategy? How do you manage that deep, messy nth-party risk effectively?
The strategic pivot is to move away from trying to do shallow checks on every single supplier. That's just not feasible or effective.
Okay.
Instead, you need to narrow your focus intensely onto your business-critical relationships. And this starts with defining your minimum viable company, or MVC.
Minimum viable company. Explain that concept in this risk context. What is that?
The MVC is basically the smallest possible set of people, internal processes, and external suppliers that you absolutely need to run the core functions of your business, even if other upstream links in your supply web fail due to a breach or some other disruption.
So identifying the absolute must-haves to keep the lights on.
Precisely. Focusing on your MVC lets you triage your entire supplier ecosystem. You can then allocate your limited security resources, your time, your budget, your audits, where a failure would be truly catastrophic, not just, inconvenient.
That makes sense. Laser focus on what matters most. So once you've defined that MVC, what are the key principles for actually building resilience around it? The sources mentioned 3 guiding principles.
Right. First is focus on business criticality. Stop using simple compliance checklists like, is this supplier ISO certified? Instead, map your critical suppliers directly to your critical business processes, like payroll or core manufacturing, or maybe your main customer support platform. And actively look for where you have concentration risk, where you're dangerously reliant on a single vendor for something vital.
Okay, know your critical paths and dependencies. What's the second principle? Sounds like it's about the contracts.
Exactly. Second principle is elevate resilience. This means going way beyond standard questionnaires. You need to conduct rigorous business impact assessments, or BIAs.
To quantify the damage.
Yes. Quantify the potential financial and operational damage if that specific critical supplier fails. And critically, you need to embed enforceable security controls into your contracts.
Like what kind of controls?
Things like mandatory immediate notification if they have a breach, clear rights for you to audit their security, agreed upon service levels that they have to maintain even during a crisis, make it binding.
Got it. Makes the resilience tangible. And the third principle, this is about planning for failure.
Correct. The third principle is collaborate and plan. Internally, you need executive-level ties with your critical suppliers, maybe CISO to CISO relationships, so you can share threat intel quickly. But most importantly, you must develop and test viable fallback strategies for every component of your MVC. That might mean having documented manual workarounds ready to go. Or it might mean having fully vetted secondary providers on standby, ready to take over if your primary critical supplier suddenly goes dark.
So resilience means having a plan B and maybe a plan C. It means continuity no matter what happens to one supplier.
That's the goal. True resilience is about continuity. #tag outro.
Okay, this has been a really insightful deep dive. I think we've provided a clear synthesis here. The strategic challenge, the imperative, is really to master this paradox we started with, right?
Exactly. It's about balancing that incredible machine speed with sound human judgment.
And balancing rapid technology adoption, because you have to adopt AI with really disciplined strategic governance around it.
That's the tightrope walk. And the market certainly reflects the scale of investment needed just to stay in the game.
Yeah.
The AI cybersecurity market, it's projected to grow from what, $22.4 billion now to $60.6 billion by 2028.
Huge growth, massive capital pouring in.
Immense.
And yet, even with all that spending, there's this striking confidence gap. It perfectly summarizes the duality, I think. While 96% of security professionals say detecting AI threats is critical,
Which it is.
only 26% actually feel confident in their organization's ability to do it.
Yeah. That gap between knowing you have to do it and feeling like you can do it, that's where the real strategic vulnerability lies for so many organizations.
So let's leave our listeners with a final thought to chew on. In this era where AI can potentially breach your systems in under an hour, and where your own defenses increasingly rely on this complex web of third-party AI capabilities and hopefully strong governance frameworks, maybe the greatest vulnerability isn't the specific technology you adopt. Maybe it's the discipline of the governance framework you build around that technology.
Well put.
So here's the question for you. What single foundational element of your security posture, maybe your asset inventory, your IAM for agents, your MVC resilience plan, what single element are you least confident in right now? And what would the impact be on your minimum viable company if that specific element failed tomorrow? Go explore that gap.